If you and your spouse are getting divorced and you're concerned about your financial well-being either during the divorce or post-divorce, then you can always ask the court for spousal support or alimony. The court will generally award alimony in a scenario where one party is unable to provide for themselves, but it's only on a rehabilitative basis, meaning we're just trying to figure out where the spouse is now or whichever party needs the support now and how long it's going to take to get them there. The unfortunate part about the state of Nebraska is that there is no exact alimony calculation. There is no A plus B equals C type of way for us to get there. In reality, the way that alimony is determined is that we take the incomes and expenses from both parties and figure out what's reasonable for one party to pay the other and how long it's reasonable for that payment to occur. People can expect their alimony payments to be sort of based upon the length of the marriage and their need for the actual alimony. When the court has to make the decision about whether or not it's going to provide alimony, it's going to look at multiple factors. But really, the primary factor is the reasonableness of whether or not one party should receive it and whether or not one party can or should pay for it. If you're asking yourself whether or not you're going to qualify for alimony in a divorce case in the state of Nebraska, the court's primary concern is the circumstances of the party, the duration of the marriage, and the contributions by each party towards the marriage. Some other factors that the court may consider are whether or not one of the spouses helped provide support for the other spouse who furthered their career or went to obtain higher education levels to increase their income earning potential, or if one of the spouses gave up a career in order to help raise the children. Those are the factors that the court are really going to consider, sort of encapsulated upon whether or not it's reasonable to pay and making a determination of whether or not one party pays or receives alimony. Modifying alimony after divorce is possible if this is something that you are looking to do. However, it does come with a fairly high burden. In order to modify, you have to prove that there's been a material change in circumstances, and those circumstances can't necessarily be something that you've done proactively. You can't lay waste to your income, or you can't retire and then say that you can't pay alimony, or you can't retire and say you need more alimony because you're retired. You have to be able to prove to the court that the circumstances that you're in were not necessarily to your own fault or something that you did actively to create the problem. You have to prove that there's been a material change in circumstances that weren't before the court or weren't in contemplation by the court the first time this issue came through. The state of Nebraska can sometimes be challenging when getting alimony simply because it doesn't have a standard of living clause. That's not to say Nebraska doesn't award alimony to people. It certainly does in cases where it's equitable and the parties need it and one party can pay for it. But in Nebraska, it's more rehabilitative. It's to get somebody back on their feet. The alimony award is a way to bridge the gap from where they are now to where they need to be, where they can support themselves, essentially. Nebraska is also now like a lot of other states where there's no standard of living clause as consideration as part of the statute, meaning if you or your spouse are accustomed to living an affluent lifestyle, the court doesn't award alimony for you to continue to maintain that standard of living if you don't have the means to provide the income for that standard of living. Divorce can be such a traumatic deal for people that are going through it, especially when your soon-to-be ex-spouse is the higher wage earner, and maybe you've been a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, or just generally have been out of the workforce for a couple of years, or if one of the parties is a much higher wage earner than the other. That can be a big factor emotionally and financially as you work through the divorce process. You need somebody that's been through it with you, and somebody can talk through it with you, somebody that can talk to the court intelligently about this issue, and hopefully get you the outcome that you need to be financially secure as you move forward in your post-marital life. If you have any questions about alimony as part of your divorce or modifying alimony as part of a prior divorce case, contact Husker Law today.